The Varun drifted through the void, its sleek silver hull reflecting the light of a distant, dying star. Captain Ralvik stood on the bridge, his four clawed fingers drumming lightly against the armrest of his command chair. His dark, scaled features remained unreadable, but his golden eyes stayed locked on the holographic display before him. The signal pulsed again. A single distress beacon, weak yet persistent, emanating from an uncharted world. The transmission was old, centuries, perhaps even millennia, but unmistakably human in origin. That alone was a mystery. Humans were a minor species, still struggling to establish themselves in the galaxy. They had no record of colonization beyond their own borders, and certainly not in this distant sector. "Are we certain it's not an automated relic?" Ralvik asked. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Vorin, a wiry, sharp-featured Xilari, shook his head. "Negative, Captain. The signal is strange. It's repeating an ancient Earth distress code, but the structure of the message doesn't match anything in their historical databases. It's almost like someone is still broadcasting it." Ralvik finished. Vorin nodded. A murmur rippled across the bridge. A living human colony, forgotten by time. It seemed impossible. And yet, the signal called to them, a whisper from the past demanding to be heard. Ralvik exhaled and leaned forward. "Helm, take us in. I want a full planetary scan the moment we enter orbit." The Varun descended through the atmosphere of the world below, its scanners sweeping across lush green landscapes, towering mountain ranges, and vast oceans untouched by industrialization. But the real shock came when the colony appeared on their monitors. A city. Not ruins, not wreckage. A fully operational settlement, nestled within a valley, its structures constructed from local stone and metal alloys. Smoke curled from chimneys, vast fields stretched beyond the outer walls, and figures, human figures, moved between buildings, carrying goods, tending to crops, and working machines far older than they should be. Stunned silence filled the bridge. "They're alive," Vorin whispered. Ralvik narrowed his eyes. No recorded history of their existence, no knowledge of how they got here. His voice hardened. "This isn't just a lost colony. This is an anomaly." Suddenly, a warning alarm blared. "Captain," one of the technicians shouted. "They're reacting to us. Ground defenses activating." On the display, large mechanical turrets, clearly repurposed from older technology, emerged from the settlement walls and locked onto the Varun. Their energy signatures were primitive, but they were operational. "They see us as a threat," Vorin said. Ralvik clenched his jaw. The mystery deepened. How had these humans survived all this time? Why had they been forgotten? And most importantly, what were they hiding? The Varun held position above the valley, its hull gleaming against the backdrop of the alien sun. Below, the human settlement remained on high alert. The old but well-maintained turrets tracked the Xilari vessel, their targeting systems flickering with ancient energy signatures. Captain Ralvik observed the scene with narrowed eyes, his clawed fingers resting lightly on the armrest of his command chair. "They shouldn't have this kind of technology," Lieutenant Vorin muttered, watching the monitor. "Not out here. Not after all this time." Ralvik agreed. This colony shouldn't exist. Yet here it was, thriving, armed, and undeniably human. The Galactic records held no mention of it. How had they survived? How had they even gotten here? And why had no one in the galaxy known of their existence? A transmission crackled through the comms, distorted by centuries of interference. A deep voice, human but wary, echoed through the bridge. "Unknown vessel, you are in restricted airspace. Identify yourselves immediately." Ralvik and his crew exchanged glances. The words were spoken in an ancient Earth language, but the dialect was different, older, yet still understandable. These humans had been isolated for centuries, yet they spoke as if they were still part of a functioning civilization. Ralvik tapped a control on his chair. This is Captain Ralvik of the Siluri exploration vessel Varun. We are on a peaceful mission of discovery. We received your distress signal and wish to offer assistance. Silence. Then, your presence is not welcome here, Captain Ralvik. Turn back. Ralvik straightened. We mean no harm. But your colony is not recorded in any known galactic database. You've been cut off for centuries. We only wish to understand what happened. A long pause. Then the voice returned, quieter this time. Leave this place. Some things are better left forgotten. The transmission cut out. The defensive turrets remained locked onto them. Vorin exhaled sharply. They're hiding something. Ralvik stood. Prepare a landing team. We're going down. The shuttle descended cautiously, kicking up dust as it landed just outside the settlement's towering gates. A delegation of humans was already waiting, their weapons lowered but their expressions tense. They wore clothing made of woven fabric, reinforced with scavenged armor plates. Some carried rifles, modified versions of ancient human ballistic weapons. Their leader, a tall, broad-shouldered man with graying hair and sharp blue eyes, stepped forward. I am Cale Morgan, he said, his voice firm but not unkind. You should not have come. Ralvik stepped down from the ramp, his posture measured. You sent a distress signal. Morgan's jaw tightened. A mistake. One we should have buried long ago. Ralvik studied him. This man was no primitive. He carried himself like a leader, one used to keeping dangerous secrets. Behind him, the settlement loomed, its structures a blend of old Earth architecture and something older, more advanced. Ralvik's gut tightened. These humans weren't just survivors. They were the keepers of something far greater. The tension in the air was thick as Captain Ralvik and his team stood before Cale Morgan and his group of settlers. The gates to the colony remained shut behind them, but the humans' eyes, sharp and cautious, never wavered from the Siluri visitors. Every motion was deliberate, calculated. The humans were too well organized, too controlled. It was as if they had been preparing for something like this for a long time. Ralvik didn't trust the silence. We've come to offer help, he said carefully. Your distress signal was faint, but we couldn't ignore it. What happened here? Why are you alone? Morgan's expression remained stoic, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Guilt, perhaps, or fear. Ralvik couldn't be sure. We are not alone, Morgan replied, his voice measured. Not anymore. But you won't find what you're looking for here. Some questions are best left unanswered. Ralvik's golden eyes narrowed. I'm not here to cause harm. I'm here to understand. You've been isolated for centuries, but your technology suggests you were once part of something much larger. What is this place? Morgan hesitated. This place is where we survived, where we were forgotten. Before Ralvik could respond, one of Morgan's companions, a younger woman with dark hair and sharp eyes, stepped forward. There's a reason the galaxy left us behind, she said. Her voice was low, almost a whisper, but the intensity in her words was unmistakable. And you're about to learn why. The sudden shift in atmosphere made Ralvik's scales prickle. This wasn't just about a lost colony. This was about something far bigger. The power in Morgan's eyes, the guarded looks exchanged between the humans. It wasn't just caution. It was fear. Ralvik stood taller, his commanding presence radiating from him. We have every intention of leaving once we understand what happened here. But I need to see what's inside this colony. You don't want us snooping around, then give us a reason to trust you. Morgan's face hardened. Trust is earned, and you've done nothing to earn ours. With that, he gestured for the auxiliary team to follow. As they walked through the colony, Ralvik couldn't shake the feeling that the humans were leading them on a carefully choreographed tour, deliberately avoiding certain areas, certain buildings. Every structure felt like it had a purpose, ancient and meticulously built. But the farther they went, the more Ralvik felt a growing unease. The buildings had an old-world charm, large, stone towers, stone walls, and old-fashioned irrigation systems. But scattered throughout the colony were things that didn't quite fit: sleek, metallic machines buried beneath layers of dirt, long-forgotten power grids flickering to life, energy shields embedded into the colony's periphery. Their technology was far older, far more sophisticated than anything the humans had been known for. "Your people must have been part of a great civilization," Ralvik murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Morgan's eyes flashed dangerously. "You're mistaken. We were once, yes, but not anymore. We are the last of our kind." They paused before a massive structure, hidden behind tall, lush trees. It was unlike anything Ralvik had seen before. An enormous, weathered door embedded into the side of a mountain. Vines crawled over it, but the metal surface beneath was unmistakably advanced. This wasn't human architecture. It was alien. "What is this?" Ralvik asked, his voice low with awe. Morgan looked away. "This is where it all began." Just as Ralvik was about to ask more, one of the humans in the group, an elderly man with a white beard, stepped forward, his frail hand raised to silence the others. "Leave it be," he said in a raspy voice. "It's the heart of this place, and if you awaken it, you'll only bring destruction." The words hung in the air like a dark omen. Ralvik's curiosity grew. There was something in that door, something buried beneath the surface of this forgotten world, and the humans were terrified of it. But what was it? What had they locked away all these years? The pulse of mystery surged through Ralvik's thoughts. If they were going to get answers, they would need to push farther. But at what cost? The group stood before the massive vine-covered door, an uneasy silence hanging in the air. The human elder's warning echoed in Ralvik's mind. "If you awaken it, you'll only bring destruction." The weight of those words pressed down on him, but his resolve hardened. There was something here, something vital, and he couldn't leave without uncovering the truth. Kel Morgan's face was shadowed with hesitation, his eyes flickering toward the door, as if the past itself had come alive in that moment. "This is where our history ended," he said quietly, voice barely above a whisper. "And where it must stay." Ralvik's eyes never left the door. The alien metal glowed faintly beneath the creeping vines, almost as if it were alive. The intricate patterns on the surface were unmistakably advanced, far beyond human craftsmanship. It was as though the door had been designed by a race that had mastered not just technology, but the very forces of nature itself. "This place doesn't just hold your history," Ralvik said, his voice firm. "It holds the key to your survival. If we're going to help you, we need to know what's inside. You've been hiding something. Why?" Morgan's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing. "It's not something you can help with. It's something you should fear." Ralvik turned to his crew, his decision made. "We're going in." The elderly man stepped forward, his hand shaking. "You don't understand. We've kept it sealed for a reason. Once the door is opened, the truth will escape. And then—" He stopped, his voice choking on the unspoken words. "You'll wish we had never found it." Ralvik nodded to his crew. "We've faced worse dangers. We'll face this one together." With a hiss of ancient machinery, the massive door groaned, its surface shifting as the vines parted, revealing a dark chamber beyond. The air was thick with the scent of old earth, and the faint hum of energy filled the space. As they stepped inside, the temperature dropped, and the walls around them pulsed with an eerie blue light. The chamber was vast, its dimensions impossible to measure by normal means. The floor beneath their feet was made of smooth metallic tiles, yet every step felt like it resonated within the very core of the ship. As they ventured further into the depths, they found a strange sight. Rows of stasis pods, each one containing a figure, frozen in time. Ralvik approached one of the pods. Inside was a human, but not just any human. This one was connected to a complex network of wires and tubes, suspended in a deep slumber. Its face was eerily peaceful, but there was a strange sense of foreboding emanating from the figure. "What is this?" Vorin asked, his voice a whisper. Morgan's expression darkened. Those are the last of us, the first humans, the ones who helped build what you see today. Are they still alive? Ralvik asked, his voice low. Morgan hesitated before responding, his tone laced with regret. They're alive, but not in the way you think. Their minds are trapped. We've been keeping them dormant for centuries, maintaining their systems, hoping to one day wake them up. Ralvik turned back to the stasis pod, his eyes narrowing. Why keep them asleep? Their awakening means the end, Morgan said, the words heavy with sorrow. What they created wasn't just technology, it was a weapon. A power far greater than anything you can imagine. If they wake, they will remake the universe in their image. They'll reforge humanity in their old image. But there's no place for that kind of power now. We've been running from it for centuries. Ralvik's mind reeled. What had these humans uncovered? What kind of technology had they created? And more importantly, what would happen if the rest of the galaxy learned the truth? His instincts screamed at him to turn back, to seal the door and leave this place behind. But he knew they couldn't. There was no turning back now. The universe was about to learn a secret that had been buried for far too long. The chamber was suffused with an eerie glow as Ralvik and his team moved deeper into the forgotten heart of the facility. The stasis pods lined the walls, each one a frozen monument to humanity's past, a relic of something far grander and darker than anything that Xilari had ever encountered. The air was thick with the weight of a history that had been buried, sealed away in fear. Ralvik couldn't tear his eyes away from the pods. Each contained a human, some still wearing the ancient garb of their people, others clad in suits of high-tech armor, their bodies preserved for centuries, their eyes closed in an eternal sleep. A hum of energy buzzed from the walls, an artificial heartbeat, keeping the ancient machines alive and functioning. But there was something deeply unsettling about it. Why did they put themselves to sleep? Vorin whispered, his voice trembling with the enormity of the discovery. Morgan's face darkened. He had remained silent, watching the Xilari's every move, as if weighing whether they would understand the magnitude of what they were about to learn. These humans, he said, voice low and filled with a sorrow that echoed through the chamber, were the architects of the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known. They weren't just explorers or settlers. They were creators. Ralvik's heart skipped a beat. Creators. Of what? Morgan hesitated, glancing at the stasis pods as though he feared the sleeping figures would awaken at any moment. They forged the very foundations of the universe's technology. They understood the fabric of reality itself. What you call space and time was nothing more than a playground to them. They were the architects of the first hyperdrive, the first FTL technology, the first weapons that could warp the very nature of existence. They ruled the stars. Ralvik's mind raced. The Xilari had encountered powerful civilizations before, but this was something else entirely. The humans, these forgotten progenitors, had created technologies that bent the laws of nature to their will. If they had once controlled the galaxy, what had brought them to their knees? Morgan continued, his voice now tinged with bitterness. They grew too powerful, too confident, and they sought to master more than they could handle. There was a war, one that tore apart the fabric of reality. When the war was over, their empire was gone, and so was their knowledge. The technology they left behind was sealed away, hidden. The people you see here, in these pods, are the last remnants of that civilization. They chose to preserve themselves, to sleep, rather than face the consequences of their creation. Ralvik could feel the weight of the history pressing down on him. And you. We, Morgan said, voice hardening, we were left to clean up the mess. We were the survivors, the ones who didn't have the luxury of sleeping away the horrors we had unleashed. We lived on the fringes, hidden from the galaxy, cut off from our past. The ship you found, this colony, it was our sanctuary. We were waiting for the day when we could finally face what we had done. Ralvik felt a chill run through him. The humans were more than survivors. They were the keepers of something far beyond their comprehension. Something that could shatter the universe as they knew it. "We've kept the past buried because it must stay buried," Morgan continued, his voice rising with a mix of desperation and resolve. "If the rest of the galaxy discovers what we've hidden here, if those humans awake, it will be the end of everything. You won't just face an empire. You'll face the wrath of an ancient race that never forgot what they lost. And once they return, nothing will stop them." The revelation hit Ralvik like a blow. The galaxy was teetering on the edge of a precipice, and they hadn't even known it. This ship, this technology, it must be destroyed, Morgan said firmly, his eyes locking onto Ralvik. "If you truly want to help us, you'll help us bury it once and for all. Seal the door. Let the past die." But Ralvik couldn't shake the image of the sleeping humans in their stasis pods. If they were truly the last remnants of a lost empire, what right did they have to seal away such knowledge forever? The galaxy was on the cusp of a new age, and humanity, these humans, were at the center of it. His mind whirled with the possibilities. Could they really let this power fade into oblivion? Or was it time to unlock the past and awaken the future? The weight of Morgan's words hung heavy in the air. The fate of the galaxy, the survival of civilizations, now rested in Ralvik's hands. Could they really seal away a lost empire's power forever? Or was it better to face the consequences of awakening the humans, to allow them to return and reshape the universe in their own image? Ralvik's mind raced as he stood before the stasis pods, each one a relic of a forgotten age, each one holding the potential to unleash a force beyond comprehension. The question gnawed at him. Was the universe ready for what lay within these walls? Voron's voice broke through his thoughts. "Captain, I think we need to act. We can't stay here forever." Ralvik's eyes flickered to Voron. The lieutenant's face was a mask of concern, yet beneath it lay the same curiosity that burned in every member of the crew. The mystery was undeniable. What lay behind those sealed doors, behind the technology that could change the fabric of reality itself? "We've waited long enough," Ralvik murmured, his voice a low growl. Morgan stepped forward, his face hardening. "You don't understand. Even if you open the door to knowledge, you'll unleash something terrible. These people, their minds were twisted by what they created. They were driven mad by the power they wielded. And if they return, they'll bring their madness with them." Ralvik faced Morgan, his eyes cold and determined. "We can't undo what's been done, but we can control it. We have to try." The tension between them was palpable. Morgan's hands trembled, but his voice was firm. "There's no controlling them. They were gods among men, and we were the ones who paid the price." Ralvik's gaze shifted back to the stasis pods. The humans within were in a deep sleep, their faces serene yet unnaturally still. A strange urge tugged at him. Could the universe truly be ready for such power? Was it even possible to stop them once they woke? He turned to Voron. "Prepare a team to assess the pods. We're opening one. We need to know what we're dealing with." Morgan's expression faltered, panic seeping through his controlled exterior. "You're making a mistake. Once you open the pod, you'll awaken them all. You won't be able to control it." Ralvik didn't respond. He was already moving, his mind set on the task. He wasn't sure what he would find when the pod opened, but he knew they had no choice. The galaxy could no longer remain in the dark. Voron and the team moved quickly, their instruments ready. They positioned themselves around the nearest stasis pod, preparing to break the seal. Ralvik approached the pod, his hand hovering over the activation switch. The air was thick with anticipation. Even the humans in the room were silent, their eyes flickering nervously between Ralvik and the pod. "Captain, are you sure about this?" Voron asked, his voice low with unease. Ralvik nodded, his voice unwavering. "We have no choice. We need answers." With a hiss, the stasis pod began to open. The thick metal walls parted, revealing the form of a human, suspended in a crystalline gel, their body suspended in time. As the air around them filled with a low hum, the human's eyes fluttered, and their chest rose with a sudden, sharp breath. The crew stepped back, instinctively reaching for weapons, but Ralvik held up a hand. This was the moment, the first step into the unknown. The figure in the pod began to stir, the dormant mind slowly coming to life, and the quiet chamber was filled with the sound of the human's voice. Where am I? The voice was weak, raspy, as if it hadn't been used in centuries. The human's eyes flickered open, their pupils dilating as they focused on Ralvik and his crew. For a moment, the room fell silent. The human, a man with graying hair and a scared face, blinked in confusion. His eyes darted between Ralvik and Morgan. I remember, the man whispered, his voice shaking. We were the ones who built it. The Empire. We were gods. His words echoed in the chamber, and Ralvik felt a chill crawl down his spine. This man wasn't just any human. He was one of the architects of the Lost Empire, the creator of the technology that had once dominated the stars, and now he was awake. The galaxy would never be the same. The man's eyes slowly focused on Ralvik, the auxiliary captain who stood before him. His gaze was sharp, despite the disorientation, as if a veil of time had not dulled his senses. The room was silent, heavy with the weight of history unfolding before them. Ralvik felt his heart race, the enormity of the situation crashing over him in waves. The human spoke again, his voice rough from centuries of silence. You're not from here. Ralvik hesitated for a moment before replying, his voice steady. We're explorers. We found your colony after receiving a distress signal. The man's expression flickered. A distress signal? No, that's not possible. He blinked, his mind slowly catching up to reality. I remember. We were gods. We built the universe. The stars were ours to command. His words trailed off as his gaze drifted to the other humans in the room. The fear in their eyes was unmistakable. They had seen this before. Ralvik could sense it. The madness was returning. The remnants of this human empire weren't just powerful. They were dangerous. The kind of power that made gods fall from grace. Vorin took a cautious step forward. What happened to your empire? Why did it fall? The man's eyes locked onto Vorin, and for a moment, there was a flicker of recognition. The deep, bitter sorrow filled his eyes. We were fools, he said, his voice a guttural whisper. We thought we could control it. The technology, the power. We thought we were invincible, but we were wrong, and it destroyed us. Destroyed everything we built. Ralvik felt a chill creep through him. The once great empire was now a shattered remnant of its former glory. This man, and the others like him, were the last remnants of a civilization that had reached too far and too fast, touching the very fabric of reality, and in doing so, unraveling everything they had built. Who else is here? Ralvik asked. His eyes scanned the room, resting on the stasis pods that still lined the walls. The man's expression darkened. There were more of us, many more, but they're all lost. Their minds were consumed by the power they wielded. We sealed ourselves away, hoping the madness would die. But it never did, and now you've awoken it. Ralvik's stomach twisted. These humans were not just the survivors. They were the architects of their own undoing. They had built something so advanced, so dangerous, that it had driven them to madness. And now, their creations, their descendants, were on the verge of awakening. The silence stretched on, the weight of the conversation sinking deeper into the minds of the auxiliary crew. The air felt thicker now, heavier, as if the very atmosphere around them had changed since the man had spoken. Morgan stepped forward, his face drawn with pain. We knew this day would come. We knew it would be you, the ones who found us. His voice trembled with an edge of anger and regret. You should have left. You should have never come here. Now the past is awake, and there's no stopping it. Ralvik turned to Morgan. You can't be serious. We're already here. We've seen what you've built, and we need answers. We can't just leave this all behind. Morgan's eyes widened. You don't understand. What they created wasn't just technology. It was life. They thought they could control it, but it was alive in a way we never anticipated. Their empire was not a civilization. It was a weapon. Ralvik's heart pounded in his chest. A weapon. These humans had built something so powerful that it transcended everything they had known. It wasn't just technology. It was a living, breathing force. And if they didn't control it now, it could consume everything. We can't let this happen again, Ralvik said, his voice low but resolute. We need to stop it before it spreads. The man in the pod stirred again, his eyes widening with sudden clarity. No, he whispered, his voice breaking. You don't understand. We were meant to be the last. The universe was supposed to forget us. Ralvik stepped closer. It's too late for that now. The past is never truly gone. We need to figure out how to stop it, before the universe pays the price for your mistakes. The man's gaze softened, a mixture of guilt and resignation in his eyes. There is no stopping it. You cannot undo what has already been done. The galaxy will change forever. The room grew colder, as if the universe itself had begun to recoil. The air hummed with energy, and Ralvik realized with growing dread that the humans' words weren't a warning. They were a prophecy. The first steps had been taken, and the universe, for better or worse, was about to see the true power of the lost human empire. The hum in the chamber grew louder, an ominous pulse vibrating through the walls. As Ralvik listened to the man's prophetic words, the weight of the situation settled into his bones. They were standing on the edge of something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. The lost human empire wasn't just a civilization. It was a weapon, a force that could reshape the universe with a single thought. And now, it was awakening. The man in the pod, once more fully conscious, took a deep, shuddering breath, his eyes scanning the room in an almost predatory manner. It's happening, he murmured, his voice ragged. You don't understand. The awakening doesn't just bring us back. It brings everything back. The power we created was never meant to stay dormant. It wants to spread. It wants to consume. Ralvik's heart pounded in his chest as the implications of those words hit him. The human wasn't just talking about an empire returning. He was talking about a force, something beyond human comprehension, unleashing itself on a universe that had long since moved on. Consume, Ralvik repeated, his voice taut with disbelief. What do you mean by consume? The man's face twisted in anguish. Not just planets, he said, his voice growing faint. Not just stars. We created life. We thought it was a gift, a way to protect the future. But it became something else, something alive. And when it awakens fully, it will take over. It will rewrite reality itself. Ralvik's mind raced. If the humans had created a living, sentient power, something that could warp the fabric of space and time, then there was no telling what might happen when it reached full strength. Morgan stepped forward, his face pale. You need to understand. We sealed this place off for a reason. We thought if we hid from it long enough, it might never return. But the moment you stepped through that door, the door to the past reopened. And now, the galaxy will feel the consequences. Ralvik turned to him, his fists clenching. You knew this was coming. You knew it could happen, and you still let us in. Morgan met his gaze, his eyes filled with guilt and hopelessness. We didn't have a choice. None of us did. The power you're about to face, it's not something we can control. It's not just in the technology. It's in the very bones of our civilization. You'll either destroy it, or it will destroy you. Ralvik's mind was spinning. If this power was as dangerous as they said, they couldn't afford to let it spread. But sealing it away again was easier said than done. This wasn't just an ancient ship or a forgotten colony. It was a ticking time bomb, a force of nature that had been dormant for centuries. "We can't let it consume everything," Ralvik said, his voice full of resolve. "We have to stop it, no matter the cost." But as soon as he spoke those words, the room around them began to tremble. The air shifted, charged with energy. The floor beneath their feet vibrated, and the walls flickered with unnatural lights. Something was happening, something that no one could have predicted. The dormant power was waking up, and it was not content with simply being contained. Vorin shouted from across the room, his voice filled with panic. "Captain, the pods, they're activating." Ralvik spun around, his heart skipping a beat. The stasis pods, once still and silent, were now humming with energy. The figures inside began to stir, their bodies twitching, their eyes flickering with a strange, otherworldly light. They weren't just waking up, they were changing. Ralvik ran toward the nearest pod, his hand gripping his weapon. "Get ready," he shouted to his crew. But as he approached, he saw something that froze him in his tracks. The human in the pod was no longer just a person. It was different. The body seemed to pulse with energy, like a star in the making. The air around it crackled, the power flowing out in waves. Before anyone could react, the human's eyes opened fully. They were glowing, bright, with an unnatural radiance. The room was suddenly flooded with an intense heat, and a deafening roar filled the air as the very walls of the ship seemed to bend and warp. The humans, these beings, were not returning to their old forms. They were becoming something else entirely. The power that had lain dormant for centuries had awoken, and it was hungry. Ralvik's pulse raced as the reality of what was unfolding set in. They weren't just facing a return of an ancient empire. They were facing an unstoppable force that could rewrite the universe itself. And there was no telling what would happen if they couldn't stop it.